Dear students and friends, hope you all are fine and following my videos regarding the syllabus of 10th Standard English First Language. So now one more lesson which is important when the point of view of test or your exams, and also it is important because it gives us many meaningful messages which can be inculcated in our life. So you all are seeing the name of the lesson or the topic, that is moral action, and the picture of the writer, the great soul of our country, that is Mahatma Gandhi ji. So you all know Gandhi ji was a great orator and also writer. So this is one of his best articles or the short story which gives us the message regarding the moral values. As children, you might have listened to many stories, and in that story you get some moral of the story which will help you out to follow that in your life or to know about what is moral value. In the same way, here Gandhiji is telling us about the moral actions. Now what is this moral action or moral values which contains morality? So this is purely about the behavior or the characteristics of human beings. So behavior, it can be called moral or immoral. When it has got moral values or morality, then you call it as moral, and if it doesn't contain moral values or if we go against moral values, then it is immoral. So this is a concept the writer has covered here, and by reading this we'll come to know, or by understanding this lesson we'll come to know many aspects which is very useful in our day-to-day life, and it will help you out and all the human beings to make our life or to lead our life in a meaningful way. Okay, before going to the lesson in detail, we'll know about the great soul, that is Mahatma Gandhi ji, in his introduction. So you all have seen the picture of Mahatma Gandhi ji. Mohandas Karamchand Gandhi to the millions of Indians, Mahatma Gandhi was the greatest of contemporary Indians and certainly one of the great men of all times. So we all know who Mahatma Gandhi ji is. He is well known to all of us. Even every day we may remember about him, especially being the students and the teachers. So he was the greatest of contemporary Indians and a great man of, is one among the great men of all times. He was the mightiest force in the Indian political scene for nearly half a century and remained the profoundest influence on all areas of public life. So we all know when it came to the Indian politics, so he was the mightiest force there. So his contribution was so much regarding the struggle of independence, and thus his influence, it is very profound when it comes to the public life, especially in India and also all over the world. His method of non-violence and truth won freedom for India without bloodshed and demonstrated to the modern man how love is more powerful than nuclear bombs. So you all know through which method he got us independence, that is the truth and non-violence. So we know very clearly that without bloodshedding or without war, you can do great things. That was followed or that was done by Gandhiji. Yes, this can be a main aspect which we have to concentrate or try to inculcate in our life. Proper to the man's ideals, Gandhiji's life and work are an open book. So when it comes to the life of Gandhiji, we know everything about him because the contribution was so much, and one or the other way we get to know about him, and his life was very simple, or he gave much importance to moral values and he followed it. It was not only in his words or in his books, but he has followed it. Gandhiji wrote and spoke tirelessly using his characteristic charm and simplicity, for which his autobiography is the finest example. So he has worked so much and he was following it, and he was very simple in his life and talk and the way he used to lead his life. Everything is jotted down in his autobiography. So this is an open book, or his life is an open book, and that too, when we go through his autobiography, it really makes us feel or know the life what he has led. Okay, now we'll go in detail in the lesson what Gandhiji has tried to tell us, and he has given ample examples here. The examples itself will give you the clear concept of what Gandhiji is trying to tell us. When can it be said that a particular action is moral? In asking this question, the intention is not to contrast moral with immoral actions, but to consider many of our everyday actions against which nothing can be said from the conventional standpoint and which some regard as moral. So here the lesson starts with a question, which can it be said, or when can it be said that a particular action is moral? When can you tell it is moral? In asking this question, there is no point of view or there is no any intention of contrasting what is moral and what is immoral. So there is no such view here, but there is a question. When can you tell an action it is moral? Now there is one point. So when talking about this moral and immoral, you have to consider one thing, that is our everyday actions. Everyday actions against which nothing can be said from the conventional standpoint. See, there are so many actions that we do. So there are so many actions that we do only because we have to follow that as human beings, or we are staying in a society. We have to follow this social life, and that's why there are some actions that we follow it. And here you can say that as it is because of the conventional standpoint. Conventional means customary, adhering to tradition, not unusual. The tradition, the culture which is going on in our society, we follow it, which some regard as moral. Yes, going according to the things going on in the society or following it, which is right. So all of us adhere it. So that's why it is called as the moral one. Most of our actions are probably non-moral. They do not necessarily involve morality. So most of the actions what we do, if, on conventional point of view, or we are following it, that can be non-moral. What is this non-moral then? Non-moral, you cannot go on searching for morality there. Non-moral actions means which cannot be connected to moral values. There is no need to search moral values, morality in that. It has to be done. For example, the child or the mother, this relationship. Mother nourishes the child, expects a lot from the child, and she wants her child to lead a very beautiful life, meaningful life. This is expectation because her love is so pure. So you cannot go on searching morality in that. So this is one simple example. And even as a teacher, we expect a lot for what we do. What is that expectation? That is the well-being of the student. So there again you cannot just go on searching for the morality. Yes, the service what the teacher gives, that's why she expects the overall development of the student. So there are many things. So we may be very strict, sometimes we may punish. That is not on the basis of the morality we punish, but there is something which we expect from our children. So there are many such actions wherein you cannot go on expecting morality in that. But moral and immoral, it is mainly based on the values, the moral values or the morality. When you follow accordingly, it is called as morality or moral. If you go against that, then it is immoral. Okay. Now the next one. For the most part, we act according to the prevailing conventions. Such conventional behavior is often necessary. So most of the time in our life, we act according to the conventions which is there, which is being followed in the society, that too for the good of the society or for the peaceful life of the human beings. Such conventional behavior is often necessary. If no such rules are observed, anarchy would be the result. If you don't follow it, those conventional needs, then surely it will lead to anarchy. The result will be anarchy. Anarchy means the absence of governmental authority. See, even though our country is a democratic country, but there is a government, there are some rules that we have to follow to be the citizens of this country, and especially for the peace living of the human beings itself. That's why these conventional activities or values are needed, which we call it as the moral way of life, wherein you are not supposed to search lots of morality in that. Social, now here, why is this conventional behavior needed? It is needed for the society or for the social intercourse. Would come to, if we don't follow that, then the society or the social intercourse, it will get to an end. Still, the mere observation of observance of custom and usage cannot properly be called morality. Okay, there is some way wherein you follow, or there are many ways wherein you follow the conventional behavior, but every time following the custom or observing the custom without knowing its usage properly or without knowing why it is used, then you cannot call it as morality. Any customs or traditions, you should be aware why you are following it. What is the use of that? What is the result of that? What is the need of that? If you blindly just go on following all those things, then you cannot call it as morality. A moral act must be our own act, must spring from our own will. If we act mechanically, there is no moral content in our act. A moral act, it should be our own act. We should have that intention of following it. It should come from within us. It should spring out. It must spring from our own will. It is not because of compulsion you are doing. You should have that intention of doing that, then it is meaningful. If we act mechanically, there is no moral content in our act. If we just go on doing it mechanically without knowing anything, like machines, as the switch is on, that goes on working. In the same way, only for that purpose if you are doing, then it is of no use. Such action would be moral if we think it proper to act like a mission and do so. So if you think that yes, I should work like a machine or I should perform like a machine, yes, then you can think that it is moral. For in doing so, we use our discrimination. But doing like this, we use our own discrimination. We should bear in mind the distinction between acting mechanically and acting intentionally. We should know that. We should bear in our mind. What is that which is called as acting mechanically or acting intentionally? Intentionally is with our own will. We know that. We want to do that. That is intentional. Mechanically is without knowing anything, you just go on doing that work. It may be moral of a king to pardon a culprit, but the messenger bearing the order of pardon plays only a mechanical part in the king's moral act. Example, a king is pardoning a culprit. A culprit means a person who has done some wrong thing, but the king was very open-minded. He was ready to pardon him. Then it becomes the moral decision or the moral action of the king. But what about the messenger who is bearing that order? Who is carrying that order and announcing it? Who is bearing that? So there it plays only a mechanical part in the king's moral act. So it will be only a mechanical part. He just listens to what the king is telling and he announces it. Or he gives the message there. It is only a mechanical part in king's moral act. Okay, now we will continue with the next part. But if the messenger were to bear the king's order, considering it to be his duty, his action would be a moral one. Now, what the king has announced, if the messenger were to bear it or bear that king's order, considering it his duty. So, if he had to bear it, considering his duty, when he is very much involved in his work, so very pleasingly he is doing work, then that action you can call it as a moral one. How can a man understand morality who does not use his own intelligence and power of thought but lets himself be swept along like a log of a wood by a current? So here there is a question. How can a man understand morality when he is not at all using his own intelligence or power of thought? Power of thought means thinking. When we are not using our intelligence, we are not at all thinking about anything, then how can he understand the morality? He is just like a log of wood, swept into a current or the electric log cutting machine. So you are just following things. You are just acting as if you are also a mechanical or item or a mission. You are not at all thinking. So if you are not able to think, you don't have your own intention, then it is not possible for us to understand morality. We are just like a wooden cutting machine, or we are just like a wooden log which is being placed for cutting into that machine. Sometimes a man defies convention and acts on his own with a view to doing absolute good. Such a great hero was Wendell Phillips. So here there are so many people who defy convention and act in their own way, and thus they want to do something absolute good. So regarding this aspect, there are so many people or great heroes who have done this only for the good of the people and also following this good values in their life. So such a great person is being told here or introduced here, that is Wendell Phillips. So he was an American orator and social reformer. Opposed slavery. See, like this, some conventional behavior or actions that is done in the society, sometimes that can be also opposed on the basis wherein you have to serve the society. You want to bring some change in the society. So that is one example that is being told here. We'll see in detail what this great person has told. Addressing an assembly of people, he once said, "Till you learn to form your own opinions and express them," listen it properly, "I do not care much what you think of me." Thus, when we all care only for what our conscience says, then alone can we be regarded to have stepped on to the moral road. So, very touching and interesting statement here. So, once he was addressing the assembly of people, wherein he told that, or he has said there, till you learn to form your own opinions and express it, I do not care much what you think of me. So you should have your own opinions. Every time we cannot bow down or nod to the opinions of others. We have to think in a right way and have our own opinions, and we have to express it. See, one more point. Thus, when we all care only for what our conscience says. See, our conscience will always alert us. It tells us, yes, there are many ways in the life wherein you can lead it in a proper way, but there are so many constraints. It will also try to guide us when we really have control on ourselves. Otherwise, it is not possible. So, that is what he is telling. If you are able to listen to your conscience and if you try to give importance to that, then surely you will be regarded, or you can regard yourself that you have stepped on to the moral road. We shall not reach this stage as long as we do not believe and experience the belief that God within us, the God of all, is the ever-present witness to all our acts. Yes, this is again an important message. First of all, we should believe or know that God is within us. Your conscience, you should listen to that. When you are not able to know that, when you are not able to believe your own conscience and act accordingly, then we cannot step into a moral way. So that is given here. When you believe that God is within you, and when you come to know that the God of all is there and He is witnessing all your acts. Yes, whatever you do, your conscience will always be present within you and it witnesses. The minute you do wrong, I feel, most of us will come to know, yes, what today I have done is wrong. Or if you feel that it is right, you enjoy it. Otherwise, surely something keeps pricking within us. So this is very important, wherein you have your own opinions, believe in God, believe in your conscience. It is not enough that an act done by us is in itself good. It should have been done with the intention to do good. That is to say, whether an act is moral or otherwise depends upon the intention of the doer. See, you may be doing action. For example, you want to help out poor people. You may feel that it is good. Yes, but it depends on the intention of doing that. Mainly the intention of doing that. If your intention is good or it is based on moral values, surely you can call it as good. But within you, if the intention is negative, then we cannot be very sure whether it is a moral act. So here, mainly the act of a doer depends on his intention. So no one can understand or know your intention. In front of them, maybe it is a very great act, but no one knows what is within you. Two men may have done exactly the same thing, but the act of one may be moral and that of the other the contrary. So, two men might have done the same act, but here it can be different because one act or the man who has done that act which is based on moral views or in a moral way, it can be fine, but the other can be contrary, mainly based on the intention. Take for instance, a man who out of great pity feeds the poor and another who does the same, but with the motive of winning prestige or with some such selfish end. Yes, the feeding of poor, most of them do it nowadays. It has become like a usual thing that feeding the poor or helping them out. See, but there is a difference. Are you doing it willingly, really to help them out, or with the intention of getting the prestige or to get that fame or to get the name in the society? See that there is a difference. So there is a difference. Thus, one can be based on morality, the other actually does not have moral values. When the people are in need, help them out, not to be successful, or when you want to win something, when you want to get something. So, if this is done, then it is not based on moral values. Though the action is the same, the act of the one is moral and that of the other non-moral. Here, one is moral because yes, he is doing it based on the moral values. The other one is non-moral. Non-moral means it has become a daily affair nowadays. All of them, most of them, they are trying to help people out, and there is an intention behind it that he should get that fame. So, that will be non-moral. The reader here ought to remember the distinction between the two words, non-moral and immoral. It may be that we do not always see good results flowing from a moral act. So, here also the reader is trying to, or he ought to remember the distinction between two words, that is non-moral and immoral. So, non-moral, it is like a conventional behavior, all are doing, we are also doing. So, that's why when it comes to non-moral, you cannot go on searching for morality in that. But when it comes to immoral, when we go completely against morality, then you consider as immoral. It may be that we do not always see good results flowing from a moral act. Every time, it doesn't mean that doing a moral act, the morality or the good result has to be come out of that act. While thinking of morality, all we need to see is that the act is good and is done with good intention. So, while you are thinking of morality, so then what happens? You should always need to see that the act is done, that should be good and done with a good intention. There should be good intention. The result of an action is not within our control. Usually, the result of the action, it is not within our control. God alone is the giver of fruit. Historians have called Emperor Alexander great. Yes, great emperor. Whenever we have studied about him or known about him, so he is called as a great emperor. Wherever he went, in the course of his conquest, so when he went on conquesting, so in that, what is that process? He took the Greek language and Greek culture, arts and manners, and today we enjoy the benefits of Greek civilization. So wherever he went in the process of his conquest, he went on taking, means that was like being given or spreaded. Yes, the Greek language, the Greek culture, the arts, manners, everything was spread in all the areas wherever he went, or he might have preached about that. Today we enjoy the benefits of that Greek civilization, but the intention of Alexander behind all this was only conquest and renown. So he went on conquesting. So the main intention was the conquest, and one more is renown. Renown means fame. So he got fame because of that, and here he also went on spreading or made all this thing prevail in those areas. Who can therefore say that his actions were moral? It was alright that he was termed great, but moral he cannot be called. So how can you call, or how can you tell that actions were moral? Yes, he is called as a great emperor or a king. Whatever he has done, it is for the fame and for the development or for the prevailing of his own culture or the many aspects regarding his civilization, that is Greek civilization. So Alexander the Great of Macedon, son of Philip II, one of the greatest conquerors of the world. So in history, in your social studies, you learn about Alexander. These reflections prove that it is not enough for a moral act to have been done with the good intention. See, one more point again. But it should have been done without compulsion. Okay, one thing, you have to do the act which is good with good intention. But one more point, it is not enough if you do that act or it is done with good intention, but it should not have been done without, it should have been done without compulsion. See, moral act, doing something good with a good intention, yes, correct. But if you are doing it with compulsion, then you cannot call it as moral. There should not be compulsion. Again, it should come from within you. There is no morality whatever in my act. If I rise early out of the fear that if I am late for my office, I may lose my situation. So, you want to get up early only for the purpose that, so you have to be on time in your workplace, or if not, I may lose my work there or the situation. Getting up early, it should be the purpose of leading a life in a fruitful way, or it should be from within you. It should not be because of the compulsion of your job. Similarly, there is no morality in my living a simple and unpretentious life if I have not the means to live otherwise. Again, one more thing. See, he may tell, yes, I am living a very simple life. Yes. When is it called as a simple life? So, if you are really meaning it, and even though you have all the luxuries in your life, but you want to be away from that and lead a simple life, then you can call it as a simple life. You cannot tell that you are leading a simple life because you don't have otherwise a way. Yes, your life itself is a simple one. There is no other go. You have to lead that life. But even then, if you tell that I am leading a simple life, you cannot call it as a moral act. Now, what is the meaning of unpretentious life? Unpretentious is modest. So, you want to lead a simple and a modest life. Not very high-fi life, a modest life. Even though you have all those aspects in your life, but you want to be a simple one, then only you can call it as a moral act. But plain, simple living would be moral if, though healthy, I think of all the want and misery in the world, about me and feel that I ought to live a plain, simple life and not one of ease and luxury. So when can you call it as a moral act? So you want to lead a plain and simple life, even though you have everything in your life, the luxury, the wealth, everything, you avoid it and you just see the pain and the misery all around you, and thus you decide to lead a very plain life, a simple life, even though you can live a very luxury or a very easy life. This is needed. So there are so many people, yes, there are so many people, even though they could lead a very luxurious life, they have just led a very simple life. Again, you can take the example of the great leader who has written this article, that is Gandhiji. Yes, the pain of the people that he has seen very close by, and he was with them, and he has led a very plain and simple life. Likewise, it is only selfish and not moral of an employer to sympathize with his employees or to pay them higher wages lest they leave him. So one more example is given here. So there is an employer wherein he just thinks that if he doesn't pay the employees who are there with him, and if they leave the job, if it is a problem to him and if he just goes on paying them, then you cannot call it as a moral action. He should think for the well-being of the the employees. He cannot be selfish. Oh, if I don't pay properly, if I just don't go on hiking their salary, they may leave me. That is selfish thinking. Means you are thinking about your own concern. But if you think about the well-being of the employees and try to pay them regularly, hike their salary according to your profit, then surely it can be considered as the moral act. But there should not be any selfish motive. So that is very important. So that is one more example given here. All the examples which are being discussed here, they are all important, because most of the time, even in your exam point of view, they go on asking you the examples which are being discussed here regarding each point or each values that Gandhiji has discussed as the moral one. So go through it properly. Okay, now we will discuss the next paragraph. It would be moral if the employer wished well of them and treated them kindly, realizing how he owed his prosperity to them. So, the employer should always think of the good of those employees, because they are working for him, and then he has to treat them kindly, that all his prosperity is owed to those employees, because alone an employer cannot build up his concern or his establishment. He needs employees, the support of the employees. So always the success of the employer is always based on the work of the employees, the main foundation of that concern. This means that for an act to be moral, it has to be free from fear and compulsion. One more point. So we should not be always in a fear. So if we don't look after them properly, if we don't pay them properly, they may leave us. No, you have to show the concern mainly regarding their upliftment, their well-being, so that no problem, so that you will have no problem to be very fearful about the prosperity, about their concern. It will go on without any problem. That's why always this should be in your mind, that if the act has to be moral, it has to be free from fear and also compulsion. When the peasants rose in revolt and with bloodshot eyes went to King Richard II of England demanding their rights, He granted them the rights under his own seal and signature. But when the danger was over, he forced them to surrender the letters. See this one more example. When the peasants, the workers who were there, or the people under King Richard II of England, when they all went, they rose. Rose is the past tense of rise, in revolt. They all were against him and they went to him with bloodshot eyes, means with lots of anger, ferociously. So they went to him and they went on demanding their rights. So what did he do then? Yes, he granted them those rights under his own signature. Yes, he granted, he gave them. But what did he do later on? When the danger was over, he forced all the people to surrender the letters. So there was a overall or a something opposite action that was done when everything was over. Completely different one. First, he was fine, he surrendered everything, then he took back all those letters. It would be a mistake for anyone to say that King Richard's first act was moral and the second immoral. For his first act was done only out of fear and had not an iota of morality about it. See, you can just not tell that what action he did, first action, what he did, that is a moral one, and then you cannot tell that the second action was immoral, because whatever he has done, it did not have anything. He might have done it out of fear, but that is the act which did not have little bit of morality. He never thought anything, he just did it. He wanted to just come out of the situation there, and then somehow he managed it, or he managed it by forcing his power on those people. So thus you can tell it did not even have little bit. Iota means an extremely small little bit of morality about it. The action was completely immoral. Just as a moral action should be free from fear or compulsion, so should there be no self-interest behind it. So one more point, as the moral action should be free from fear or compulsion, again it should not have any self-interest behind it. So you are doing something only with the self-interest, for the sake of your self-development or for your self-fame or anything. This is not to say that actions prompted by self-interest are all worthless, but only that to call them moral would detract from the moral idea, dignity of the, detract from the moral idea. See, you cannot call all that actions that are done or prompted by self-interest are all worthless. You cannot tell like that. But when considering it as moral, that would detract from the moral idea. Detract means diminish the worth or value. If you want to consider it as moral act, then the actions that have done with self-interest may not be completely taken as a moral act. That will diminish the value of that act. So that is important here when the act is done with the self-interest. That honesty cannot long endure, which is practiced in the belief that it is the best policy. As Shakespeare says, love born out of the profit motive is no love. See, the honesty cannot long endure. Endure is to continue in the same state. Honesty cannot continue in the long endure or continue to the same state, which is practiced in the belief that it is best policy. Yeah, it is a proverb that honesty is the best policy, but only keeping that thing in mind, if you just go on doing it, as if it is a very best policy, then that may not end for the many day for a long time or in the same state. In the same way, Shakespeare quotes here, love born out of the profit motive is no love. The love within you, that is there, which is shown or born only out of the profit, then you cannot call it as a real love. So these are the two aspects which is telling you about the self-interest in human beings, wherein we always give importance to that and try to be very worthy or very loving or being a very nice person. Just as an action prompted by the motive of material gain here on earth is non-moral. Just as an action prompted by the motive of material gain here on earth is non-moral, so also another done for considerations of comfort and personal happiness in another world is non-moral. So usually what we do is, when it comes to the worshipping of God or praying, so usually sometimes people have the intention of material gain or getting the blessings, all these things. So when we pray, we may ask for the well-being of our family members or well-being of others. All these things are there. So that can be non-moral, because you cannot just go on searching for the morality values. So in the same way here, just an action prompted by the motive of material gain here on earth is non-moral. So also another done for the consideration of comfort and personal happiness in another world is non-moral. So we do good things. One thing is, we do good things only for the motive of getting material gain. In the same way, we lead a very plain life, simple life, or a dedicated life, or we serve many people thinking that we'll have a very comfort life or a very proper life in another world. So what is this life in another world? That is life after death. So you might have heard about people telling the hell. You will go to hell if you don't lead a proper life. Otherwise, if you lead a very successful life, or if you are very honesty, then you may go to heaven. See, thinking about that, if you want to lead a plain life, serve the society, then that is also non-moral. That action is moral, which is done only for the sake of doing good. If you do that action only for the sake of doing good, then you can call it as moral. See, no one knows what is life after death. And you are not even sure whatever you do will be successful, or you may get anything from that. There may be a very good result. No, it's just life. So if you have so many expectations, then you can call it as non-moral. But if you are doing that action only for doing good, then it can be called as the moral one. A great Christian, Saint Francis Xavier, passionately prayed that his mind might always remain pure. For him, devotion to God was not for enjoying a higher seat after death. He prayed because it was man's duty to pray. So here the great Christian Francis Xavier, 1506 to 1552, Jesuit missionary, known as Webster of the Indies, brought Christianity to India, Southeast Asia, Japan, etc., associated with Ignatius of Loyola in founding the order of Jesuits, the followers of Jesus Christ. So this person, he always prayed only with the mind that only with the intention that his mind should be always pure. Pure thinking, pure way of leading life. Only for that purpose he used to pray. For him, devotion to God was not for enjoying a higher seat after death. It was only for doing good, and it was a duty of the man that he has to pray to God. Now one more example here. The great Saint Teresa wished to have a torch in her right hand and a vessel of water in her left, so that with the one she might burn the glories of heaven and with the other extinguish the fires of hell. So here one more personality, Saint Teresa, known as Teresa of Avila, Spanish nun. Nun means the Christian sisters or the nuns, reformer of the Carmelite order, wrote her own mystical experience. So she used to like to carry a torch in her one hand, the other one is, so you can see a torch in her right hand and a vessel of water in her left. So why is this? What does this torch and that bowl of water or vessel of water, what do they say here? Why was it used is because she wanted to extinguish the fire of hell with the vessel of water, and also she wanted to burn the glories of heaven. Torch means to show, to highlight the glories of heaven, and also to extinguish the fires in the hell. Extinguish the fires means the sufferings in the hell, and to identify and to uphold the glories of the heaven. And men might learn to serve God from love alone, without fear of hell and without temptation of heavenly bliss. So here what was the purpose is, she wanted to make people know that we have to serve God with love, not from fear of going to the hell, or we should not get tempted towards the heavenly bliss. Bliss is great joy. So that is a belief in us. If we go to heaven, we will be very happy. But if we go to hell, we may suffer there. So we should not think about all those things. There are no people who have seen heaven or hell and come back and told to anyone. It is the belief. But for that purpose, we should not get tempted that we will be having a good life after death or a very high life after death, or we may suffer after death. No thinking about that. We have to serve the God, we have to love the God, or we have to pray with the intention of doing good or serving the society. To preserve morality thus demands a brave man prepared to face even death. Yes, to preserve morality, to preserve that moral values, what is needed is a brave man prepared to face life or whatever is, even death. Because we would have faced many things as a living beings. Many experiences might have might have disturbed us, or we might have been very happy. But why do we want to just go on expecting something after death or fearing about the life after death? Whatever you do when you are alive, that itself is a blessing to you. So you have to follow the moral values, or you have to lead life in a proper way. It is cowardice to be true to friends and to break faith with enemies. Those who do good out of fear and haltingly have no moral virtue. Henry Clay, known for his kindliness, sacrificed his convictions to his ambition. So here, see, it is cowardice to be true to your friends and to break faith with the enemies. See, being very good with your friend or leading a very truthful life with them, but when it comes to your enemies, you just don't want to be faithful to them. Yeah, it is not correct. It is really a cowardice, or you are not brave enough to face the situation. You cannot do this. And those who do good out of fear, Only because of fear you want to do good. And halting have no moral virtue. What's the meaning? Halting is hesitantly. Virtue is the high moral standards or the supreme, the sublime. See, you do all this because there is a purpose. You are very fearful, so you try to lead a life in a proper way, or sometimes when you feel that whatever you are doing is to such a great extent and you feel that you are supreme, all this is not right. So one more example is given here. Henry Clay, known for his kindliness, sacrificed his convictions to his ambition. Daniel Webster, for all his great intellect and his sense of the heroic and the sublime, once sold his intellectual integrity for a price. By a single mean act, he wiped out all his good deeds. This shows how difficult it is to judge the morality of man's action because we cannot penetrate the depths of his mind. So see here, two personalities being discussed here. Henry Clay, known for his kindliness. What did he do later? He sacrificed his convictions. He was known for his kindliness, but later on he sacrificed all his convictions to his ambition. When you are over ambitious or when you want to do something, so that time you may be going in the wrong way, or sometimes you sacrifice everything only for the purpose of your ambition. Two things can happen. Next one here, Daniel Webster, for all his great intellect and his sense of the heroic and the sublime. So he was a great intellect and he was heroic and sublime, that is supreme. One sold his integrity for a price. Intellectual integrity only for getting the name and fame, that is for a price. By a single mean act, that act was very mean, he wiped out all his good deeds. So because of that act, all his good deeds were gone, or it is wiped out. This shows how difficult it is to judge the morality of a man's action because we cannot penetrate the depths of his mind. So here, giving these two examples, the writer is trying to tell that it is not so easy to judge the morality of a man. It is not so easy only by his action because we cannot penetrate. Penetrate means deeply know about him or about the depths of his mind. What is going on? What is within him? He may be doing all his work in a right way or in a proper way or in a moral way, but what is there within him? You cannot know it. That's why it is not so easy to judge the morality of a man's action. Depthly you cannot know his views or the views which are there within him or whatever he is thinking. We have also the answer to the question raised at the outset of this chapter. What is a moral action? Incidentally, we also saw which kind of men could live up to that morality. So here, we also have the answer to the question raised in this, the outset of chapter, that is, what is moral action? We have the answer for that. Incidentally, we also saw which kind of men could live up to that morality. So, you will get the answer by knowing all these things, and also we can see that what kind of people could live to the level of the morality. So, there are many aspects which will help us in knowing the moral values, but the actions of human beings are not so easy, wherein you can really tell that by his action he is a very moral person because his views or what he is thinking within him is all very difficult to understand. But one thing what we have to know here is moral values can be the base of your life wherein you have to follow it in a proper way and with the willingness and with the good intention. So this will really help you out to be a successful person or to lead a moral way of living. But in certain aspects, it is very difficult to understand the level of morality. So here we come to the end of the lesson. We have got the different aspects that Gandhiji tries to tell you what are the things that has to be followed in order to lead a moral life and how we should be truthful in our action, that is in our deeds and also words. Whatever we speak, we should be ready to follow it, and whatever we do, it should be within us or it has to rise out of our willingness, and we should always listen to the conscience because conscience will always guide you in all the ways. So read this lesson and try to learn the most of the values that are told in this lesson. Thank you.